All right, back here with another stream. We got some editing to do on this song before we jump into the mixing process. This is a freshly finished session off of recording. The vocals are still scratched, so the client still has to come in and put their vocals on the track, but everything else is ready for mixing. So we're going to get this song edited. We're going to get a mix up and running so we can send it off to the client so they can practice their vocals and then come back in and track their vocals. So let's kind of listen to the rough here at the moment, and then we're going to jump into editing. Okay, so first things first here. Oh, my first goal is going to be getting the drums edited here. You can see there is a patch in here, so let's make sure the patch in's clean. We'll bounce them and get them edited. Cool, patch in sounds good. Let's bounce these. So we have finished tracks here. Merge them and then bounce them. So once we have finished bounces here, I'm going to bounce them through EQ and compression. I don't like to track through EQ and compression, especially in the middle of a session like this where we were tracking a lot of songs, so going from one to the next. It's very easy to make a mistake with EQ and compression and then come back to the session and realize you printed too much compression. You can't get out of that. So I like to do EQ and compression after the fact here. So we're going to do that now inside the DAW, but I'm going to mute out everything else here for the moment. No guitars. We'll just mute all of our electrics for the moment. No keys, no vocals, and then no beautiful background vocals at the moment. Just want to hear the drums. So we're going to go through here. Here is our kick in. Just a touch of EQ and compression here on the kick-in mic. So we're pulling out all of this 800. That's all that funky mid-range, that kind of nosiness, that boxy sort of sound. This needs to come down to 7K. So we're going to add a touch of 7K for click. And then just a bump at 50 there. Doing about 6 dB reduction, 2 to 1 here on the dBx. I'm going to copy these same settings across here to the kick out. All we're going to do to start is knock this down to 400 hertz and get rid of all that muddiness on this kick out mic. All right, same kind of processing there on the kick out mic. That's sounding good. We're going to move over to the snare top. We're going to do similar round of processing. I'm going to use this 1176 style compressor though on the snare drum. I'm going to jump to this middle chorus section and take a listen through here to the snare. Just a side note here, we've recently switched from a 57 on the snare drum to an Audix i5. If you've ever used an Audix i5, if you've seen one, they're about the same price as a 57, but they're so fat. Listen to that. That is a fat sounding snare drum, and that's really, really useful coming into a mix to just have all that bottom end weight on the snare drum. No need to EQ it up and get a bunch of kick bleed or anything like that. So very, very cool microphone. Let's get some compression going on the snare. Cool, snare's sounding good. Let's move over. Snare bottom. I'm going to copy the same settings across because it's going to be pretty similar for compression. We'll probably need a touch more. And I'm going to do 10K up top. This is a new mic as well that I've recently started using on the snare bottom. I used to have another Audix i5 on the bottom of the snare, but I've recently switched to this. This is a Shure 545, and it has a smooth, it's like a 57 with a smoother top end. Cool, so there's our snare top and bottom. Moving over, I don't do anything to the toms. The way we have the toms in the room just sound beautiful right off the bat. I do run the Antares mic mod on the overheads. I run them as 87s. I don't run anything on the room anymore. I used to use a Slate mic on the room, but I've since switched to a Roswell Mini K47. And actually, on this session here, so that's the Roswell Audio Mini K47, and it's running through the tube channel strip up here in my rack, and it's just being slammed by the compressor. So really, really nice sounding mono room that we end up with here. So let's bounce everything through here. I am going to create a layer in case I want to get back to everything. So we'll go kick, room, duplicate layer. And that's going to give us somewhere to go back to if we do mess anything up along the way. Always nice to have a recovery point. I do like to turn off layers follow events. I don't want anything bouncing underneath. So all I'm going to do now is bounce this processing that we just did to each track here, and we'll have a committed sound and a committed starting point for the mix. I like to bounce through this. It works just like I would be recording through these EQ and compressor settings on each part of the kit. It's just I can do it after the fact and make sure everything is the way I want it. So there's our snare top. Ooh, that's looking a little bit louder than where we were to begin with. So let's come in here. Let's bump that down a dB or so. See where we're sitting now. That's not bad. I don't want it to be louder though. So we'll bump it down one more. Call that. So there's our snare top. We'll probably do the same thing here with our snare bottom and bump it down a dB or so. We're not doing as much compression on the snare bottom though. It is a gentler sort of sound here. Cool, now they're sitting at about the same volume, which is nice. Again, nothing to the toms. We'll go in and edit our toms afterwards here. Always saving before we do anything with this mic mod plugin because this can be kind of a pain. So just modeling his U87s there. Actually looking about maybe getting a pair of the mini K87s for overheads too, but I've seen this old Studio Projects microphone that people have been modding to be an 87 as well, and that would kind of be a fun project. All right, so there's that. I'm going to create one more layer afterwards, but we're going to get our edits going here. So I'm going to group the drums together. So kick in all the way down to the room. And all we're going to do now is edit through on the drums. So I'm going to zoom out here, and I'm going to use this guy and zoom in our audio just so we can see our kick and snare very, very clearly here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to come through and literally beat by beat here, we are going to edit out the drums. So we can kind of see, I like to take it section by section here. So we'll go up to this first section here. We'll make a little cut all the way through, and I'm going to edit this first section all the way through. I don't like to move individual beats at a time. It just gets a little bit of a pain as we move it. So first kick hit. Oh, what's this saying here? Oh, it looks like it was freezing for a little bit. That's all right. We're going to keep moving along here. Here's our next one. So you can kind of see our snares on. So that's good. So I'm going to make a little cut here. I don't want to go too crazy with some of these. They're usually meant to be where they're meant to be. Again, we'll cut there, move our snare over. A little cut here. Move that back. I don't want to move anything too far out of whack. We have a good drummer to begin with here. So nothing needs to get moved too far. You can kind of see as we move some pieces, other pieces fall into place. That's usually your sign of a good drummer when they're staying really, really even like that. And it can be somewhat tedious sometimes, and you can get somewhat involved, which I do sometimes. I can be one for over editing sometimes. But a little bit goes a long way. Just to give you a tighter sound here. And this is done to a click, so it's never going to be too far off. But getting it just that much more on goes a long way to give you a tighter track and a tighter mix as well. If your bass and your drums are sitting really, really tight on the track, it's going to give you a stronger bottom end. Cool, snare drum looks good there. Let's pull this back so our kick's sitting on. Good. Touch forward here on our kick and snare. You can see as the kick goes into place, so does our snare drum. Pull that back. Little cut here. That's looking okay. Let's scooch it forward just a touch. And then same thing here. Scoot that forward. Just a little bit. So that's looking okay. Let's cut right here so and get that back where it's supposed to be. Because our snare drum's on. And I'm not going to touch the fill. I don't want to screw anything up. There. That looks okay. Let's pull this back. Get that on the 2. Move till our snare drum's good, and then just a touch more till our kick drum's on. I'm going to move this guy forward. That kick hit looks good. These are coming in on like 30-second notes here, which is kind of cool. Kick drum looks good. Snare drum looks good there. That looks good. See, that kind of stuff right there. I don't want to cut it if I don't have to. Here's where we're a little out. So sometimes close enough is close enough, right? Especially if they work together as a group and as a cohesive line. There's no need to grab anything and move it if we don't have to. You can see that snare's on, so we don't need to touch that. That cut might be a little bit too close, but we'll hear it as we bring things together here. Again, see as we move our snare on, our kick falls into place. That's good. We're going to pull this whole section here just a touch forward. And then we'll cut right below that and pull that forward even more. Cool, that looks okay. I'm going to cut right here in the middle and just scooch that kick forward just a touch. We'll pull this whole section back till our snare's on. Same kind of thing here, just a touch back and everything falls into line. Just a touch forward. We'll move that whole section. That looks okay. Let's get that tom hit somewhat on. So if we put that kick on, let's kind of see here what we can do. If we pull this back till the tom hits on, we kind of want this so that's not bad. I want that kick back just a touch more. So I'm going to pull everything back just a little smidge. And then we'll go here. Cool, so we're at our verse section. We're going to go to the reintro here. Do the same kind of thing. So we'll cut. And then go back and do this next section. It can take a little bit, but little by little, everything falls right into place. Editing drums has never been one of my favorite things to do. And there's definitely quicker ways to do it. You could do, what's it called? Where you're grabbing transient detection, audio bending up here. Yeah, audio bending. But as you bend the audio, you kind of change the tone of it. And I've never been a big fan of how that kind of falls. It always changes the tone of the drums too much for me. If you have a really, really good drummer, and I mean like a machine, you can probably get away with using it if it's kind of just nudging everything back to the bar. But when it comes to like this, like moving beats and make sure everything's where you want it to be, That's a little much. Cool, so if we nudge this forward more. That's good. We can nudge this whole piece forward here. That's good. So you can kind of see I get anxious sometimes, and I like to look where we're ending. So we're ending about 120. We're coming up on 50 here. Can take a little bit of time sometimes. So this kind of fill here, let's scooch it over so it's kind of right in the middle. So you can see we have a little bit of a flam here where they're supposed to be hitting on the same beat there. We put them a little bit before and a little bit after, and we should be okay there. This needs to come back, so see where that needs to land. So let's maybe move this whole thing back a little bit to where the snare's on. And we'll go a little bit over to where our first beat's on. If we cut here and maybe move this whole section back just a touch. Let's kind of listen, at least generically, to that pass. Cool. We'll get our fades in later, and that'll smooth right out. Let's get this kick in place. We'll pull this whole piece back just a touch. Cool. There's that. I might scooch this whole piece forward. I can kind of see our hi-hat hit there. I don't want to move that. Move that back just a touch. Get a little ahead here. I don't want to move everything around there. We'll pull our snare back. Once we get our snare on, we can cut. Move our kick in. That looks fine. That snare looks fine. Let's get this kick in place here. This can come back. This can come forward. Let's go here. A little bit of work here. Touch forward. Touch backwards. And you can see, you want to make sure you see everything here. So you can see it's kick in, kick out, snare top, snare bottom, and then I can see all of the toms here. That way I can see all of the transients as I move through this track here and as I set edit points on everything. This can come back just a touch. Set everything in place there. And the further you zoom in, the more tedious you're going to want to get with things. So don't be too crazy. That kick looks great. Let's move this guy forward a little bit. And maybe here as well. and then just a touch at the end to get that where we want it going into the reintro. Let's take a listen just generally to this fill. Sounds great. Cool. All right, that was our next edit point. We'll try and make it all the way through this verse here. So by the time we come out of this verse, we will be halfway through the song here. Cool, so that's our edit point. Let's pull this whole section back just a touch so that kicks in place, and then we'll pull the snare back. Cool, and then everything else can move forward. That looks okay. Let's pull the snare back. Again, another instance of little moves here. Our edit point disappeared. So let's go put that back in. There we go. All right. Ooh, you can hear the wind outside. It is currently -2 degrees here. Fun times. All right, now we have the freedom to move. So you can see if you don't set an edit point towards the end, you can get a little caught on some pieces because you won't have anything to drag back. You won't have enough leeway. I'm going to bring that with this kick drum. We'll bring this whole piece back. Cool. Same thing coming back here. That needs to go forward. We'll move it to there's good. And then we'll cut right before and move it the rest of the way. Good, good. Again, I'm going to cut right before that. You can see a little bit of noise there, whether it's a hi-hat or a snare ghost, what have you. We'll pull it till we're good there. We can bring that whole section back. Evens out our kick there. Let's pull this whole piece back. If I can move pairs, I'd rather move pairs like that, right? I'd rather move the whole group, especially if they work together. That looks okay. I'm going to bring this whole, again, snare and kick package back. Kick looks okay there. Again, snare and kick. Now we're a little bit out, so let's pull that in. We'll pull this back. All right, so where do we need to sit? We need to be forward. And then again, a little bit more. We'll go a little bit till this is on, and that should get us pretty close here on the end. Yep. All right, cool. Now we're into this verse section. Oh, halfway through or so. We got to go up to 120. We are at 60, so halfway through here. Pull that whole piece back. Can move our snare hit forward. That, again, see another pair, this whole piece can come back. That's fine. I think I'm going to move this whole piece, but I don't want to take that kick too far back. So just a touch and just a touch. I'm probably too zoomed in now at the moment, but let's pull back just a little bit. The further you zoom in, the further everything's going to look off. That actually looks okay. Let's nudge it back just a touch and kind of get a balance between this kick and snare hit. This can come forward. That can come back just a touch. We'll put it back till that snare's on. And then nudge that kick back. That snare looks okay. Let's pull that kick till it's on. I'm going to pull this whole piece forward. Now these commands in Studio One, if you are curious. So for cutting, where I'm cutting is Alt-X. So that's how I'm cutting. So if you press Alt-X, you'll make your cut. So if we cut here, I'm going to cut right before where I want it to go, right? So I want this to be here on the bar. So I'm going to cut right before the bar. Alt-X. And then Studio One has this nifty feature where we can slide the audio inside the actual, slide the audio inside the audio pretty much. So without having to move this actual clip, we can slide the audio. So if it's Alt-Command, we can drag it back. Nice, just a little more here. So that's why you can see when we didn't have our edit point earlier, it only let me pull so far, because if there's nothing else to pull back, if the audio ends, it ends, right? There's nothing to get out of that. This can come forward. And this whole piece here, let's see if we can get that nudged forward and then nudge maybe that a little more. Go a little bit further. Cool, and then we'll cut right before this kick and just pull it over to the bar. We are in back half of the verse now. And you saw we're going to about 120 or so at the end of this track. So we've got just a little ways to go here. Coming up on 80 here. Once you get in the groove of everything, it goes relatively quickly. Can definitely feel pretty slow. And if you're doing long edits like this, looking at your computer screen, I would recommend maybe you take a break at some point, or if you have like a Mac and you can put on the night mode where it drains the blue light from your screen, that can be really helpful as well to make sure you're not straining your eyes. Oh, excuse me. That looks okay. Just a nudge back. And just a nudge forward there. That could probably be okay. See, something like that, I can get a little bit too involved on some of these, but it doesn't hurt it if we're close enough to the bar. That's fine. I've got a fill here going into this next section. So I'm going to cut here, and we're going to put that final kick on. And everything actually lines up. Excellent, excellent. Very, very nice. All right, let's pull this whole piece back here. Cool, and then onward and upward to our next section. So let's go through... let's go through the bridge here first, before we get too far. I don't like moving too big of sections at a time, because then I'm always afraid I'm going to jack up something at the end of it, but you're usually pretty safe. Especially, again, with a good drummer like this. Nothing's ever too out of whack. We're always pretty close to where we should be. A cup of 4. We can bring this whole section back. See, puts our snare on there. Little move there. And we have everything on. Just a touch more here. Again, a little before, a little after. So if we have kind of a flam like this where they're both hitting it at the same time, I like to do a little bit before, a little bit after. That way the middle of it's on the bar somewhere. Probably too zoomed in here. Let's pull this snare forward. That can come back. This can slide forward. Almost got our kick to where it should be. Kind of a flam there, but everything lines up afterwards. So we're going to leave that snare on the bar. A little forward there. And then everything back here. Got another fill here, so again before, and then I want that kick at the end to be on the bar. So we're good there. Let's cut before this snare roll and slide it in. We've put them on the bar. We should be okay. Excellent. Excellent, excellent. This snare can come back. We're a little ahead here, or a little behind. That can come back. That can go forward. Good there. Pull that forward. Just a touch up there. Is that a fill? Kind of. We can afford to just move this back, though. Again, a little more there. Starting to get a little too zoomed in again. Very easy to do, especially with a doll like this that's so flexible, to just drag everything in. Oh, almost there. If you are still with me through all of this, you are a trooper. Almost at 100. So we're in the home stretch here coming out of this chorus. We'll have the bridge, which is 4 on the floor, so that'll be a little bit of a piece to handle. And then just the final chorus here. This needs to be on the bar. See if we can stretch this a little bit. And then that's going to be a little messy, but you can get away with stretching the snare a little bit like that sometimes. If it's a nice roll, because it'll sound cool. That should be on our 2, I think. So this is our funky bridge section for this track. Let's get our edit point in. Oh, and let's make our way through the bridge here. So that can come forward. Maybe a nudge more. Can probably get away with that edit point there on the tom. We should be okay. Might be getting a little too zoomed in again, but that's... here I'm a little bit more worried about the toms being on, especially when they're the main hit. This can probably come back just a nudge. Working kind of the same way as like a snare kick hit. No sense cutting there, so I'll just drag that till that's good. Good. We'll put that tom on. Again, no sense destroying that. We'll nudge it a little forward, and then even though I said I'm not going to do it, I'm going to do it anyway. That kicks on. this can come back on the end. And then actually, that's pretty centered, so we'll leave that. Again, a little over. We'll go till that kick's good. That's centered enough for that. We could probably pull it back just a touch and maybe go till that next piece is good. Cool. These can all come forward. Cool. Again, if I can move them in pairs, I'd rather move them in pairs. That's just a kick, so let's get that good. Almost through our bridge here. Get that lined. Get that lined. That's sitting good. That can probably come forward just a little bit. Now we have our big fill rolling out to the end here. So let's see if we drag it to start on the bar, if it lands our kick drum. And it does. Look at that's beautiful. That's all I want. Excellent, 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 excellent. We have our snare good. Cool. Now we're just going to the end of the song. So I'm going to make this big cut here. And then it'll give us all our room on the end. Oh, to drag anything we need. Starting to make me tired here on the editing. But we've got literally 10 points or so to go. 10 bars or so. That fill actually looks pretty good to me if we move that forward just a touch. We could probably nudge that forward without hurting the piece behind it too much. Another piece that lines up really, really nicely as a group. Just a touch back, just a touch forward. This here needs to come forward, but I don't want to hurt anything after it. Again, moving those as a group. That kick looks good. That whole bar looks good there. This could come back just a touch. And same thing here. This could come back a little bit. Almost done here. I'm going to cut again before that piece there. Probably move this whole piece. That lines up nicely. That looks pretty good. We have a fill here. Let's put this on the bar at the end to start. And that actually puts our snare on the bar. So we'll call that. That works. That works. That's pretty darn close. Good. We can move this whole piece forward. I like to move that back half kick and snare together. A little fill here again. We'll put the Final kick on the bar. And then we'll move this front kick forward. Good, that puts our snare on the bar. And there's our end of the song. All right. We made it. Woohoo! I think we end short here. Yeah. So where are we trying to end here? Trying to end off. Let's put the piano in too. Let's see where that's sitting. So it's offbeat at the end on purpose, but I want to make sure I put it in the right spot. Cool, that quick cut at the end is really nice. So now what we can do is we can get rid of that at the end here. And see, we're going all the way to the end, so let's pull it to, we can actually put our snap to grid back on. Pull it to the 29. And we can add our fade there. All right, everything's added here. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna highlight all of our little clips here in little pieces. I'm gonna press X. That's going to add, you can see all the crossfades that just got generated there. I'm going to nuke this piece at the beginning. We can clip this to right where we want the drums to start. I don't need the piano anymore. So we're starting right on the money there. All right. So now let's listen through. And see how we're sitting here. Zoom in just a little bit. And all we're going to do is listen through this entire track, and any spots that need help, that need anything extra, we will take care of them. that is that. So the last step here that we're going to do is the same kind of thing that we did earlier here. So I'm going to highlight all of our drum tracks, and I'm going to create a layer of this edit. So we're going to duplicate the layer, and I'm going to call it edit. So now I know for each of these tracks underneath, there's a group of this edit. So if I need to get back, if I hear later, oh, that kind of sounds off, or that doesn't sound right, I need to move that, I can pull up the edit, flip everything around where I want it, and then rebounce through. So we're going to highlight everything here, all of our clips, all of our tracks. I'm going to merge them to one piece, and then we're going to bounce them through here. So now we have our finished drum edits for this song, and we will be able to mix our song in the next piece here in our next segment whenever I come back to this track here. But our drums are set. Everything else is pretty much ready to be mixed from this session. But that is how we go through editing drums. That's how I do my EQ and compression off the front end, creating my layers, and then going through and editing these pieces here to sit where I want them inside of this track. Thank you so much for hanging with me here on the stream today. If you made it through all of that, if you hung for any part of it, you are quite the trooper. Editing drums can be very, very tedious, and it can be quite a gruesome process to go through. How long did it take us? Ooh, about an hour or so, 50 minutes or so maybe here with the talking in between and along the way. If you're interested in going a little bit deeper into the drum mixing process, or just the mixing process in general, you can click the link below in the video description and you can get access to my 7-step mixing checklist. This is just a checklist that's going to walk you through the entire mixing process, step by step, to help you get professional and radio-ready mixes in less time. It is a completely free guide. You can download that using the link in the video description. Thank you so much for hanging with me here on the stream today, and I will see you in another one very, very soon.